Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're jumping right onto the factory floor to really untangle two terms that are absolutely essential, but let's be honest, often get mixed up: production management and process management. Getting this right isn't just academic, it's the first step to a much smoother, way more efficient operation. So we've all been there, right? You've got what looks like a perfect plan, but then, somewhere along the line, things just go completely off the rails. A shipment is late, costs start to spiral out of control, maybe a critical part just doesn't show up. These things aren't just little headaches. They're actually symptoms of a much deeper issue in how we manage the flow of work. And today, we're going to get to the bottom of it. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the core definitions, production versus process. Then we'll zoom out to see how that fits into the bigger picture with supply chain management. After that, we'll walk through the 5 key flows of production, step by step. And once we know how it's supposed to work, we'll dive into why it so often fails. And most importantly, we'll look at the path to making it all work right. Okay, let's get started with the absolute fundamentals. Because, look, if you want to build a really strong system, you've got to understand the building blocks. And in manufacturing, the two most important blocks are process and production management. First up, process management. The easiest way to think about this is as the micro view. It's all about perfecting one single specific gear in a giant machine. So this could be a single welding station, maybe a painting booth, or one specific quality checkpoint. The whole focus here is on the efficiency, the progress, and the quality of that one individual step. Now, if process management is just one gear, then production management is about managing the entire machine. This is the macro view. It's not just about one little step, it's about orchestrating the whole shebang, from the second an order comes in to the very moment that finished product ships out the door. And this table right here breaks down the key differences beautifully. When you look at scope, process management is super narrow, just one process. Production management is broad, the whole production line. Their purpose is different too. Process management is about perfecting one step, while production management is aiming to optimize what's known as QCD. That's quality, cost, and delivery for the entire system. Now, the most important thing to get here is that process management is an essential part of production management. You can't have one without the other. Okay, so we've got it. Process management sits inside of production management. But let's zoom out just one more time. Where does production management itself fit into the grand scheme of things? And this slide lays it out perfectly. It's like a set of nesting dolls. At the very center, the most granular level, you've got process management. That's tucked inside the broader manufacturing management of the factory floor, which in turn is part of that bigger production management system we've been talking about. But the biggest box, the one that holds everything else, that's supply chain management, or SCM. So what's the big difference between the two? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Production management looks inward. It's all about making what happens inside your company's four walls as efficient as possible. SCM, on the other hand, looks outward. It manages the entire journey from your raw material suppliers, through your factory, out to your logistics partners, and all the way to the final customer. It's about optimizing the profit for the entire chain, not just your single link in it. All right, so now that we understand the what and the where, let's get into the how. How does a customer order actually move through this whole production management system? Well, it follows 5 very distinct flows. It all kicks off with order management. That's just taking the customer's order. From there, you move to production planning, where you create the master plan. Step 3, you give the actual production instructions to the factory floor. Once the product's made, you issue a shipment instruction. And finally, shipment management tracks that package until it's safe and sound in the customer's hands. It's a pretty logical step-by-step process. So, if the process is so logical, why does it break down so often? Let's circle back to those problems we talked about at the beginning and really pinpoint the common points of friction. This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? The flowchart looks so clean and perfect on paper, but the reality on the factory floor? Yeah, it's often messy. So what's going on? Well, the material we're looking at points to 3 main culprits that just completely derail even the best laid plans. First up, poor accuracy. I mean, think about it. If your demand forecasts are just a guess, or if the data you're using for your capacity is wrong, the entire plan is basically built on a foundation of sand. It's that classic garbage in, garbage out problem. And it leads to ordering the wrong amount of materials, scheduling people incorrectly, and ultimately not being able to meet your customers' needs.
The second huge issue is that planning is just incredibly time-consuming. Just try to picture all the data that needs to be gathered. You've got info from sales, from the factory floor, from procurement. Manually pulling all of this together and plugging it into a spreadsheet takes a massive amount of time. Time that could be spent doing much more valuable work. And third, we have this big problem called person dependency. This is what happens when your entire production plan lives inside the head of one or two veteran employees. You know the ones. They're the only people who just know how everything works. This creates a giant bottleneck and, honestly, a huge risk for the company. I mean, what happens when they go on vacation? Or even worse, what happens when they decide to retire? And let's be really clear about the stakes here. The source material puts it bluntly. These aren't just minor little annoyances. These planning failures have a direct, straight-line connection to poor product quality and late shipments, the very things that can destroy a company's reputation and its bottom line. Okay, we've spent enough time on the problems. Now let's talk about the solution. How do we actually move from this state of constant firefighting to one of smooth, optimized, and predictable production? Let's start with a really powerful number that comes from a case study: 40%. One company, just by switching from manual spreadsheets to a modern production scheduling system, cut the hours they spent on planning by 40%. A manual process that used to take them 6 hours was suddenly down to just 2. This isn't just a small tweak, it's a total transformation. And, the benefits go way beyond just saving time. Companies that really tackle these planning issues see some incredible results. We're talking planning hours slashed, production volumes jumping up, and they get this amazing new ability to rapidly adjust when things change. They cut their inventory costs, and crucially, they finally break free from that risky reliance on a few key people, because now the system holds the logic, not just one person's memory. So if there's one thing you take away from all this, let it be this. If you want to fix the wider system, you absolutely have to start at the core. The key to unlocking efficiency across your entire operation is creating an accurate, fast, and really resilient production plan. That's the heart of it all. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've talked a lot about solving the problems that exist right now, but as technology like advanced scheduling software and AI becomes way more accessible, the whole question starts to change. How can we move from just being reactive to being predictive? How can we build systems that don't just solve today's bottlenecks, but actually anticipate and prevent the ones that might pop up tomorrow? Now that is the next frontier. Thanks for tuning in.